Hello everybody, this is from our U.S. History 2 students. This is the third concept on the New Deal. We're discussing the significance and the legacy of the New Deal. So, the New Deal was the product of many minds and pressure apart from Roosevelt's. In fact, it was a loose bundle of laws and executive orders that were designed by many men and women. Most of the new policies were established as practical steps to solve immediate problems. The first of the greatest benefit offered by Roosevelt in the New Deal was hope. As you got a sense, if you and looking at the clip of the riots during the Great Depression, it's pretty clear to understand that with 25% unemployment, that's 1 in 4 people unemployed. I mean, if you think about unemployment today, it's pretty dismal, and we are quite anxious about it. It's about 8.1% now. Imagine what society would be like if it was 25% today. So people were understandably incredibly anxious, and we're really giving up hope on the whole idea of democratic capitalist societies. Programs like the Social Security Act and the WPA gave back to many Americans a sense of personal dignity and a belief in their country. There was one major idea behind it all. The federal government's power should be used to meet any national crisis. Roosevelt and the New Deal became fused in the public mind. In Roosevelt, the people felt that they had a president who cared and who understood. During the New Deal, the conservatives, or critics of the right, claimed that government intervention in the economy and society had gone too far. Impairing the market mechanism, encouraging dependence upon the government among a formerly self-reliant people, and concentrating to power in Washington in general, in the White House in particular. These arguments were rejected by a majority of the American electorate during Roosevelt's lifetime and have been reflected in mainstream of historical scholarship since then. There were also the critics on the left, or the socialists of the time, who argued the New Deal unfortunately saved capitalism and had failed and it achieved only minor reforms when more sweeping changes were possible given the context of the time. These arguments as well were rejected by a majority of the electorate and by most historians. The popularity of the New Deal was tested and affirmed at the polls at least twice, when Roosevelt ran for election in 1936 and then again in 1940. Let me get that back. Okay, sorry about that. And there we go. All right. The second thing that it established, looking at the legacy of the New Deal, is it led to a new social philosophy referred to by different names, such as people capitalism or really popular, the welfare state. The New Deal was accepted in some degree by both the Republicans as well as the Democratic Party after 1940. Right, it's coming under some scrutiny today, but from World War II all the way up to actually quite recently, there was a general acceptance of people's capitalism or the welfare state by both parties. Now the Republican Party is questioning the merits and the future of the concept of the welfare state. The New Deal was accepted in some degree. It was the final acceptance of change in the American system, which started with the progressive movement in 1901. The New Deal was a series of pragmatic reforms and compromises which saved capitalism after the old deal failed. The old deal being laissez-faire, rugged individualism, and all of those things that we discussed during the landed frontier. The new social philosophy was closely associated with its third legacy, which produced a new economic system. So the third legacy is basically an effective partnership between private enterprise and government, which is often referred to as a mixed economy. So a mixed economy is an effective partnership between private enterprise and government. During the New Deal, the federal government had to come to the rescue of banks and other industries with financial aid, which involved government supervision and the development of the partnership. Theoretically, the American economy was a market economy, depended on the decisions of private buyers and sellers. But as the result of the New Deal, the state of a healthy economy evolved to where it became dependent to a considerable degree on the federal government through taxes, bank credits, direct spending, and subsidies. As a result of the Depression, the President and Congress had developed the tools to influence employment, inflation, prices, wages, the rates of economic growth, and more important, the American people have come to expect government, or even demand that government control these economic factors. If the economy is failing, the President and Congress are often held accountable. The government rarely adopted consistent or long-term programs of control, which makes long-term planning by business difficult or sometimes very costly if its plans do not complement future government strategies. So that's a downside of it as far as the business community is concerned. Since the New Deal, government policies, consciously or otherwise, have been directed toward guaranteeing the income of various segments of the society. Thus, the economic partnership between business and government has led to an economic system sometimes known as people's capitalism or welfare capitalism. The fourth legacy of the New Deal was the physical rehabilitation of the country. For generations, Americans had been laying waste their natural resources without restoring them. The New Deal's attack on this problem was thoroughgoing. It involved an ambitious program of soil conservation, building dams, planting trees to prevent floods, reclaiming the grasslands of the Great Plains, and millions of areas of sub-marginal lands, developing water power resources, and inaugurating vast regional reconstruction enterprises like the TVA, the Tennessee Valley Administration, and the Columbia River projects. All this changed the face of the country and restored to produce productive use much of the national domain. No part of the New Deal was more imaginative than the conservation of natural resources as demonstrated by the TVA. Of all the New Deal projects, the most dramatic was the Tennessee Valley Authority. Not content with the government operation of the Tennessee River Administration for nitrate production, Roosevelt insisted on expanding the program to a vast experiment in regional reconstruction. Congress in May of 1933 created the Tennessee Valley Authority with power to acquire, manufacture nitrate and fertilizer, generate and sell electric power, and inaugurate flood control, withdraw marginal lands for cultivation, develop the river for navigation, and general advance the economic and social well-being of the people living in the river basin in the 6-state region. The fifth legacy of the New Deal is that there was major development in the realm of politics and government which saw the strengthening of the executive branch. And the reassertion of presidential leadership. Roosevelt made it clear, as his predecessors had, that the presidential power was pretty much what the president made it. As a result, Roosevelt demonstrated leadership as seldom seen before and since, and made the Democratic Party stronger than it had ever been by grafting together a coalition of urban workers, of farmers, of ethnic and racial minorities, and intellectuals. Last but not least was the New Deal's success in convincing so many Americans and Europeans that democratic reform and capitalism represented viable alternatives to totalitarianism. For In the 1930s, it became doubtful whether liberty, democracy, or capitalism could survive in the modern world. And at the end of the decade, totalitarianism states felt strong enough to challenge the democracies in war for survival. Thus, the New Deal brought hope to a free world which had nearly lost faith in itself. Roosevelt felt failure to meet the people's needs was the greatest fundamental danger to the democratic and capitalist systems. In 1938, he said, quote, if its business system does not provide employment and produce and distribute goods in such a way as to sustain an acceptable standard of living, of a living democracy cannot survive. Roosevelt stated, government has a financial responsibility, or a final responsibility for the well-being of its citizenship. If private cooperative endeavor fails to provide work for willing hands and reliefs for the unfortunate, those suffering hardship from no fault of their own, have a right to call upon government for aid, and a government worthy of its name must make a fitting response. So this is, again, the legacy. Just to recap, the legacy, hope, a new philosophy of people's capitalism or a welfare state, a mixed economy, a physical rehabilitation of the country, a stronger executive branch, and finally, democratic reforms and capitalism that was a better alternative than a totalitarian state, which other nation-states were experimenting with in a very tangible and horrific way, including Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and Imperial Japan. All right, that will conclude the New Deal. Email me if you have any questions or concerns, and I'll talk to you guys all later. Take care.